How you doing, guys?
What's up, Dan?
How are you doing?
Great. You come all the way out here to interview us, huh? Thank you.
I know this summer we saw a lot of intensity on the practices. How much is that has carried over now into the fall?
Hopefully a lot. You know, I think the good part is the intensity has a little more intent behind it now. I think initially all you want to focus on is just effort, intensity, flying around from thing to thing, and then eventually it adds intent. Okay, so now we're giving that kind of effort, we're giving that kind of enthusiasm, but there needs to be an intent behind it. You need to do it right, and so that's where we're at right now, is adding some of that intent.
Ben, as a first-year coach in the Big Ten, do you look at what Dusty May did last year and take anything from that?
You know, not a ton. You know, obviously I learn from every coach in every situation, but I don't. It's two different scenarios. You know, I think that you can have success. It just really depends on the players that you coach and the staff that you've hired. Hopefully, you know, we did those the right way, which I'm pretty sure that we did.
What do you think of the Big Ten as far as the competitiveness of the conference? We're going to square off against on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's a good league. it's a tough league. Obviously, there's no nights off. I think that's the biggest thing, the biggest challenge and difference is, can we have an emotional game and then 3 days later get ourselves emotionally ready again? And doing that at a consistent level is what we're trying to get to as a program.
I'm curious, as bringing Cam and Bennett, how was that your decision to bring both of them? Was it voted on? How did that process go?
Yeah, I mean, they're great representatives of. It was me. It's great representatives of who we are as a program. Obviously, Bennett's been in our program for 4 years, and Cam's a great representative of who we are and was in our program for the last year as well. So both are very well spoken. Both are a lot smarter than me. So we try to bring people who are smarter than you here.
What is it about Cam because obviously you've worked with him less than Bennett, but what was it from last season working with Cam that stood out?
Yeah, he's gotten better and better. You know, I think just from a consistency and effort standpoint, he has high, like he can get to himself to a high end. Can we get him to that high end all the time? And he started to do that throughout the year, and obviously a state champion as well in high school. So some of that winning pedigree has come with him, you know, and a great teammate.
What have you seen from Bennett in terms of, you know, moving to the Big Ten, a bigger conference as a player, and how do you think he's handled it?
Well, fine. We haven't played any games yet, but you know, I think that it's similar to the MIAA. You know, we went from Division II past low major and went to mid-major plus, if you want to argue it, and he got better. You know, he got better. You know, he was second team all conference in D2, and then was MVP of the Missouri Valley Conference. So, you know, the only issues that I foresee in regards to that sort of thing is just our consistency of making sure that we're ready emotionally, night in and night out. But from a ability to play at this level, I don't have any concerns there.
Ben, what did you learn from going from D2 to Drake, that whole process? What did you learn about what it takes to win in that transition that you feel like you can or have applied in the transition from Drake to Alvaro?
You know, when we went from Northwest to Drake, is that what you're saying? Yeah, so when we went from Northwest to Drake, we brought 4 players with us from Division II. I wasn't totally sure how they would be at that level. I knew that they could play at this level, but you weren't always sure from a talent perspective if that's what you needed, because obviously they recruited to the Division II level for a reason initially, right? But I knew that they had the intangible talent to start our culture and to build it so that we could have sustained success, and then make sure that we recruit the talent necessary to win in the Missouri Valley Conference. What we found out is that that intangible talent and that connectivity matters a lot more than we expected, and the level change wasn't as shocking as we expected. Now, obviously, now you're going up another level, and so your bigs are a little bit bigger, your guards a little bit bigger, a little bit more talented, a little more athletic. The environments are different, and I think that'll be the biggest change going up, that we learned that, hey, we can do this, but it's going to take a monumental effort and nothing that we're afraid of to be able to do it.
Ben, you guys have a couple of scrimmages coming up, the secret scrimmages. What do you hope to get from those events? What do you look to try to do in those situations?
Yeah, it kind of depends on the scrimmage. So a lot of times our first scrimmage, in the past, I'll give you the history of our scrimmages. In the past, my first couple of years at Northwest, we try to win those scrimmages, meaning we try to dominate them, and we'd play a certain amount of guys, and boy, we would win them. And sometimes we win by 25 or 30, and we finished last for 2 straight years. And so I realized the scrimmages are probably more important. You do want to compete, and you are trying to fight and those kind of things. You also want to make sure that you work on what you're supposed to work on, and that you give people opportunities to play for extended minutes. So that's the biggest part of these scrimmages. Closer you get to the season, the more you're going to try to be really detailed on what you're trying to do from an approach standpoint. We're still getting used to scouts. We still don't know who's going to play consistent minutes. And so you've got to give those guys time. So if you put somebody in and the other team goes on a 8-0 run in a scrimmage, like, you can't overreact and like, oh, we're going to take them out because they're going on a run, let's put this guy back in. No, you need to give them time to be able to work through that in that kind of setting. So I have to be careful that my competitive instinct doesn't kick in, which it usually does to a certain level, to make sure that we give guys enough time to work through some situations throughout a scrimmage. And again, the first one is probably more time. The second one, you probably get a little bit less time. And then obviously your first game, it's on.
Ben,
Ben, did you have a question? It's hard to tell if he can take a joke, but that would be Alvaro, without a doubt. But in a good way. He keeps me on my toes for sure.
Ben, on the topic of Alvaro, what did you see from him at Eurobasket? Like, what were some of your big takeaways watching him? And then how has he gotten acclimated back, being with the guys now?
Yeah, I didn't think Eurobasket was his and he would tell you the same, wasn't his best.
Yeah.
I don't think it was him necessarily. I think when you go to a program and they had lost like 3 or 4 of their normal guys that they played with, he was put into a different kind of role. And so it was kind of a unique setting and hard for him to acclimate to that role. He'll be in a different role here than he was at the Eurobasket. He's gotten better and better and better every day. I think the hardest part is, with a guy that's so versatile, is how do you keep that defined into being great at a few things without branching out too soon and then mixing it with everybody else. The good part is he's a very good connector, meaning he keeps flow of the offense very well, and he's actually a lot better defensively than I even expected, because he's got great length. He's all of 6'10", great length, great hands, plays with intensity. So as long as we can keep that consistency up, he could be a good player for us. Really good, particularly offensively. That's where we knew he would be able to do things offensively right away. He's bouncy, he's shooting a high percentage, he finishes at the rim. I think defensively is the hardest part to pick up, and how quickly he can do that, and what positions he can guard at this level that quickly. But for a kid his age, should be a senior in high school, to be able to do what's most impressive is his acclimation to just being at a university that's 30,000 plus students, and how he engages with everybody. Like, he engages with everyone. He'll shake anyone's hands. He's such a good representative. He's a kid that can be your leader into the future of University of Iowa men's basketball.
Can you sense a chemistry with this group? I mean, did you feel like that there's a lot of cohesion with this group?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and then we recruit to that.
Right.
You know, we recruit good kids, so everybody's pretty high character. We've got great kids. They want for each other's success, and then our coaching staff exemplifies that as well. Meaning, I just hired guys that I like to be around, and you know, it feeds the team that same concept, so they get an example of that every day.
Cooper Koch is one of the holdovers. How has he kind of fit into your system and what you guys do?
Really good, really good. You know, it took a little bit just from a workload perspective. It's not better, not worse than before. It's just different, and so the workload now in the weight room particularly, he had to get used to. Probably the physicality of our practices, he's getting used to, and now he's to the point where he's initiating the physicality. He's extremely skilled, can shoot it, can really pass it, can drive, can play multiple positions. He's in our scrimmage the other day. He was fantastic. Played really, really well.
Is that maybe one of the ultimate compliments or just testaments to your ability as a coach when someone follows you and you feel like with Bennett, you know, he followed you here? How does that make you feel as a coach?
You know, it's a testament to the relationship that we have with our players. And we had 6 follow us. And they wanted to be a part of our program. They wanted to be with our staff still. They wanted to play in our system. And what we always tell people in recruiting is it's great to say that you're going to have relationships with your kids and your players. What do your actions say? And so for us, our actions say we do have a good relationship. We have 6 people that came with us. I've got, I think, 4 former players on my staff. And so when we say relationships with players is a big deal, like, you can look no further than our actions that say that. And so it's certainly a compliment to our staff and our relationship with them.
There's been some sentiment that Bennett could be, you know, an NBA prospect. What do you think he needs to do?
I think he is. I think as he goes up levels, I think he gets better. The more space on the floor, officiating is a little bit different. Whereas, you know, like in college, it's, I say, more physical, but you know, the point of NBA basketball is to score a lot of points, and so they're going to call, you know, hand checks and all that stuff pretty consistently. Not that they don't at this level too. It's just a different game because there's illegal defense. Like, you literally have rules against defense in the NBA, which as he goes up levels, I think he'll be that much better. What does he need to get better at? I think he's pretty good. So I think he can play there now.
You could potentially have a pretty deep team. What's your comfort level in terms of rotation? How many players do you like to play during the game, or are you like 10 guys, or are you 8, 9?
I like to play good players that can play. So that's kind of always been my theory. If I have 5, then we'll play only 5. If I have 10, then we'll play 10. So most recently, our groups have been around the 6 or 7 mark that we've played, and we've played 2 guys, I think 40 plus minutes. I think the year before that, we played 3 guys. Well, in our regional game, I think we played 4 guys 40 minutes at Division II. We're not going to do that here, you know, that I've seen. We've had teams that have played 10 guys. So it just depends on how many guys we feel like can play.
Do you have to monitor Bennett's minutes a little bit closer in the Big Ten versus the Valley, or are you going to feel comfortable playing him 40?
You know, it's always open for debate, and I'm always open to change my mind. I will say that when we went from the MIAA to the Missouri Valley, it was the same sentiment. You can't play your guys that many minutes, and we actually played him more in the Missouri Valley. I did take him out for, I think, 30 seconds a game every once in a while, so I think he played 39 and a half minutes a game. And then Mitch played 40 minutes a game, and then Daniel Abreu played quite a bit of minutes as well. So it's always open for debate, but we've done this for years and years and years, and it hasn't hurt us, but, you know, maybe it does at this level. I would say the biggest learning that you probably have is the hype surrounding players and prospects, even in the portal. So when people are like, they may value somebody like, this is a really good player because he averaged 15 a game at this school. That doesn't mean that he fits your system well. And so the value to you is different than the value to the open market, if that makes sense. And so trying to assess that and trust yourself in a 1 week window is tricky. I think you do have to get ahead of it a little bit more. We were ahead of it at Drake for the mid-major. We weren't ahead of it for Power 5 and high major. And so, this next year, hopefully being ahead of it, hopefully having guys that return will help. So then we know exactly what position. And I haven't even been in the league to see what you need to be able to do to win the league consistently. And so that'll help as well going into next season.
How do you evaluate what someone's value might be?
How they fit in our system. One, I think now if we move towards rev share and there becomes a salary cap, then you can kind of create different ways to make percentages of the value to your specific program. But for instance, if you're a point guard, you probably want to come to University of Iowa. Like, one, we value that. Two, your value is going to go up exponentially, right? If you're length that can shoot, this is probably a good place for you because we use that very, very well. And we place a high value on 6'8" to 6'10" to 6'11" guys that can dribble, shoot, and pass and post. We place a great value on that. The other value that we probably place is more of the intangible talent piece of it, the emotional perspective, the intensity, the competitiveness, all those things.
You've been out in public quite a bit selling the program. What's been the response that you found from fans as you've talked?
Yeah, it seems like a lot of excitement. It seems like people are excited to come out to games. And they're excited to support the team. My message is we want them to be with us, and we want them to be a part of what we're trying to do here. Not just, hey, if we have success, then we're going to go there. It's, no, we want you a part of the build of the success that we plan to have. And so I needed to show that I'm willing to give to them so that they understand that I'm in it with them as well. And we'll continue to do that. And the state of Iowa, that's what they want. They want to shake your hands. They want to look you in the eyes. That's who they want to cheer for. And so the more I can do that stuff, the better off our program's going to be.
I assume you probably know several Big Ten coaches that you've become friends with over the years. Did you call any of them? Have you leaned on any of them, asked them what it's like to be in this league?
Not really. I don't know a lot of them, to be honest.
Okay.
I know Dusty.
Yeah.
Trying to think of who else I know. I mean, before I got here, I've met others, but I probably only really knew Dusty. He's probably the one. I'm trying to think if I'm missing somebody. I've met a lot of them, but that would be the one that I've probably talked to the most.
I've heard you've been over to football practice a few times. What do you gain from Kirk Ferentz? What are you picking up from him?
Yeah, I mean, you just like how they organize everything, how they organize their practices. I think football practices and programs are very unique, especially ones that have been successful like his. His approach to things, his calm demeanor, but yet fierce competitiveness inside is fascinating. It's fascinating how somebody can maintain that level of success for that amount of time. And so just to be around that is obviously very impressive.
When you were knee-deep putting a staff together, putting a roster together, how many, on average, do you think hours of sleep you got?
Boy, not a lot. So at Drake it was probably worse because it would be, you'd get home at, like you'd go from like 7 a.m. to like 9 p.m. And then you'd just like kind of sleep, but kind of be in a trance. And then you'd go back to work and then you wouldn't work out I learned my lesson at Iowa, where I made sure to work out and take care of myself to a certain level. We did have 6 players rather than 4 come with us, and the staff was already complete. So for the most part, so that helped a ton. I would say, as a head coach, you probably don't get as much. I naturally go to bed, more personal stuff. I go to bed pretty early. But then at about 1 or 2, about every night, it's like you wake up and then the 10,000 ideas that you have, you just like going, and then you go back to sleep at 4, and by the time it's 5, you're awake. And it's just like, dude, just a little bit of sleep would have been nice. And then you just get after it and attack it. And so I don't get a lot of sleep anyway. It is what it is.
Ben, did you get the growth that you wanted to from Isaiah Howard this offseason, or where did you kind of want to see him progress his game?
Yeah, I did. He's been fantastic. One of our most consistent effort guys, like everyday guy. He's been great, and he brings a level of fire. I think everybody in the Big Ten that's good has that kind of 6'5", 6'6" athlete that can defend multiple positions, and he's that. Offensively, he shot it really well. I think he's shooting 38% in practice, which is great from 3, finishing well, getting rebounds. Yeah, he's going to be a good player.
Are you getting him more comfortable kind of being like a secondary ball handler, a guy that can kind of, initiate things a little bit? Or
Yeah, absolutely, because a lot of times it's good to play Bennett off the ball too. He's good on and off, and it just depends on what we need that game. And it gives him a rest, if you will, to where he doesn't have to bring it up maybe one possession. Because the 30 seconds that I give him a break for sometimes isn't enough. So we have to give him a break on the floor. So that's his break. But no, yeah, Isaiah's been, he's handled it much better. His reads on ball screens and different actions have been much better. And then obviously he offensive rebounds and plays with, he plays with his hair on fire. Like he plays crazy, which I love.
yeah.
Ben, is there something about the Drake job that sets people up for success to the point where the Big Ten basically hired all its former coaches this year?
Not necessarily that specific position. I think obviously for me it was Division I experience that helped. I think they hired good coaches. They hired, obviously Nico was a fantastic hire. They hired Darren, who was obviously great, did a great job at Drake, and then we were fortunate enough to win games. And so I think it's more, they did a really good job of Brian did a great job of hiring the right coaches. He had an eye for that, and he really trusted himself when he did hire coaches. And so then that sets itself up for the next level, which is high major basketball.
Ben, I'm just curious, like where you're at on the 5-for-5 eligibility stuff, like the pros and cons of that. Where do you stand?
I think if you're going to do that, I almost think you got to do it with the guys going to the 25 class, rather than trying to do it with the current class, because all you're going to do is open up more. People are going to sue people and more rule changes. I think it makes sense. I think the way we redshirt people in basketball doesn't make a lot of sense, because you get 2 scrimmages to figure out if you're going to redshirt somebody, and then they can't play again. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you have that 5-for-5 rule, then it's like, okay, no more, like I get this year back, I get this, whatever, it's physical health, mental health, the coach told me this, and whatever they go through, it's 5 years for 5, which would be great as long as you implement it the right way. I just don't think you can just go, here's 5 years, everybody. Now the JUCO one is strange, because they gave all JUCO a year, but then this next class, like Tavion Banks, doesn't get a year. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So maybe they'll change that. I don't know. I don't know. It's out of my pay grade, I guess.
Do you have a starting 5 in mind for that scrimmage?
I don't. Do you?
No. You're the one that has to make that decision.
Yeah. You guys can tell me, and I can tell you, it makes sense.
Do you lean maybe more on your experienced guys, the guys that have played with you earlier?
Yeah, I would say of the however many years I've been a coach, 15, 16, something like that. I don't think the guys that started the first scrimmage ever were the starters during the year. Like there was a couple, but it's just, now my first couple years, yeah, it's like, yeah, we want to win these scrimmages, and you still want to compete. But I think the teams that have the most success allow their guys to solution find for themselves in scrimmages. They don't get as concerned with the result, because the result takes care of itself, but there's a learning process that you need to make sure that you do. And me, naturally, I'm competitive. I got to be careful that I don't just, play Bennett Sturts. Like let's say you scrimmage for 55 minutes, like you can't play Bennett Sturts 55 minutes in scrimmage. But if you're trying to win the 55 minutes, you're going to play Bennett Sturts 55 minutes, right? Or even 40 minutes. Let's say it's a 40-minute deal. Like, you don't need to do that. You know what you got there. So you need to play other guys. And so that's what we would lend ourselves to is doing it like that.
Are you guys pretty healthy?
Two.
All right.
Going
Are
two.
you guys,
Since you guys drove all this way.
are you guys pretty healthy, like team-wise right now, like in terms of like injuries and stuff like that, or?
Knock on wood. I mean, so far,
right.
knock on wood. Yeah, we're rolling in. We've our summer was great. We just got after him, and naturally, I think that creates a little bit of toughness. And so, yeah, so far so good.
You mentioned Alvaro not having the same role as he did playing overseas. What do you see as his role?
Yeah, I think he's an elite connector, and so when I think where they tried to put him in a role of like not being the guy, but from a scoring perspective, from that end, I think that may be what his role was going to be. Not to say he can't be your leading scorer, because he can be. It's just when his focus is solely on that, he's not as good. When his focus is on connecting a group, because he's so high IQ and has such a good feel, all the other stuff comes with it. If he stays with that, then you might see games where he has 20, 10, and 10. You can have big games like that, but when he's focused on things that aren't necessarily his greatest strength, sometimes then they don't play quite as well.
All right. Thank you.